Hello, Cyclocross friends, and thanks for tuning in to episode 332 of Cyclocross Radio. On this show, Boedi and I are talking about Major Taylor. Yeah, neither of us were there, but I feel like I was. I was able to catch up with everybody that got on a podium except for one person and talk to them the next day. So this episode, the first hour or so of this episode is just chock full of rider interviews. Just one note about those interviews. When we are at a race and we're doing these post-race interviews, there is a sense of urgency because after the women's race, we want to get them in before the men's race starts. And then after the men's race, we want to get those in before the podium starts and pick up any of the women's interviews we may have missed. So they're usually pretty short, just a couple minutes. When I catch up with people the next day, we kind of got time. What we had, the only limitation we had is most of the people were checking out of their Airbnb in Indianapolis that day. So, we had a heart out there, but that's all to say these interviews got a little longer than I wanted them to be. I edited them down some, but the episode got a little long. So I apologize for that in advance, but I think hopefully you'll find those interviews interesting. If I'm able to do it, I'm going to try to put chapters or at least time codes into the show notes, either in the audio version and also on YouTube. So if there's somebody that you really want to listen to, I'll try to break it down so you can find them better. Second half of the episode, we're talking about Beringen and all the drama that happened there. As always, this episode is brought to you by Hammerhead and the Karoo Cycling Computer. Our deal's still going on. Great computer. I want you to take advantage of the deal, which is to get the heart rate monitor, the Hammerhead heart rate monitor, somewhere around a $70 value. You can get that for free by using the code CXRadio, CXRADIO, at checkout. So you put the Karoo computer into your basket, you put the heart rate monitor into your basket, you use the code CXRadio, you're going to get that heart rate monitor for free. If you're thinking about getting a cycling computer, thinking about getting a Karoo, do it. Use that code. It helps you. It helps us. Cyclocross Radio is part of the Wide Angle Podium podcast network, podcast and video network. So you can follow the YouTube channel that all of these episodes are going up on. I forced Amanda Nauman to do a video episode for Grodio, so that's up on the YouTube channel as well. And then we also have the Wide Angle Podium Instagram feed, which hopefully you've already followed from our USCX coverage. Boedi is continuing to post there, so we got good updates from all of the shows on the network on that Instagram feed. Finally, check out the CX Harris Bulletin. Just had an article up there today, which we'll talk about briefly in this episode, from Carolyn Diesendorf, who went out and did some reporting and some writing for me at the Bulletin, and she caught up with Clara Honsinger, and we finally get that update on what Clara is doing these days and hoping to do in the future. So really great read. Head over to the CX Harris Bulletin. If that's the kind of content that you like and coverage that you like, consider becoming a paid member of the Bulletin. It's the people who have made that choice. They are the ones that make it possible for me to go out and hire a talented writer like Carolyn to track down Clara and get stories like this. And I would love to continue to do that. So consider becoming a paid subscriber to the CX Harris Bulletin. You can go to cxhairs.substack.com. All right. It's episode 332 of Cyclocross Radio. It's Boedi and myself in the media pit. We're talking about Major Taylor and also Beringen, and we're doing that right now. All right, we are back in the media pit, kind of a remote media pit this time. Boedi, both at home this past weekend. We had a Major Taylor happening in Indianapolis, Indiana. Neither of us were there. So how'd you spend your downtime? First weekend at home in a while.
First weekend at home, yeah. And I got to ride my bike. That was awesome. Rode on Saturday, and Sunday, my partner Emily did a half marathon, so that means we woke up at 4:30 to go drive to the half marathon. And you know what? I feel like we've talked about this before, but you go to a running event and there's like thousands of people there, and you're just like, wow, all these people rode bikes. But that's the first time I've ever been to any sort of running event, so it was interesting to kind of see that in person, just to see the sheer amount of cars actually that were there at this venue. But I pulled out my new camera finally, Bill.
I was gonna say I saw some lush, creamy photos up there on the Instagram.
Yeah, I was playing around. I actually was like, all right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna like catch Emily at the start. And I was thinking just, like race coverage. And I was like, I'll go to like middle point of the race and I'll get shots there. And like it's on the lakefront. It'll be really pretty. And then I looked at the map and I was like, all right, how do I do this? And I was like, oh, you literally can't. Like, I can't leave this venue. Like, it's in a park and you can only drive in and out. And the course is the in and out. So it's closed. And I was like, oh, so start and finish.
Wait 2 hours.
Yep. Basically, that was it. But it was fun. I walked around. It's a beautiful park, a state park. I did go take photos of the beach and the pier and tried to figure out all the new bells and whistles on my camera. And my friend he ran a 5K, so I saw him earlier. And I was like out there taking photos of people just kind of practicing. I had people smiling at me. And I was like, oh, shoot. Put my camera down. I was like, you'll never see these photos. Like, I'm not the official race photographer. And I'm just don't even care who you are, but I'm taking a photo of you just because I'm practicing. And so I stopped doing that.
One of those rare occasions where you just take people's photos and they're not like looking at you side-eyed.
Yeah. So that's what I did. And I tried to log in. I was like, all right, let me get home. Let me pull up the Wide Angle Podium Instagram and let me catch the updates on the stories. And then I remembered that was us, and there was no coverage. But I did watch my race result. Lap times come through, I felt a bit of a narrative popping up. And Bill, I heard you did some interviews, so I'm excited to get some answers to the questions I had.
Yeah, so I sort of floated the idea in the last episode, and one of those things I like doing, if you put it out there, then you have to follow up and do it. And
yeah,
I was able to get pretty much everyone who landed on a podium, Major Taylor, and chatted with them this morning, which was kind of fun. We did it, everybody before, most except for Lizzy Gunsalus, who actually, is in school there, so she didn't have to check out from an Airbnb. But everybody else, I was getting in there right before checkout time, and I had Carolyn and Anna on the couch, and I had Ian and Gunnar who were staying together, cozying up next to each other for their interviews. But it was good. Yeah, I got a good take on what happened at Major Taylor. And one of the themes that I kind of posed to everyone is that I don't think that the track for Major Taylor will change from day one to day two. They'll reroute some things, but the main features are always going to be there. But you can get two distinctly different Major Taylors. You can get knee-deep mud in this kind of lower basin flat area that is just an awful slog, and you're running a lot of it, and it just is just like really, really hard. Or you could get what we had this weekend, which is like super fast but also windy, and it's kind of like I think especially with these Midwest races, it seems like the theme of these races is head and tailwinds, and we had the same thing at Major Taylor. And then, unlike what you and I witnessed for most of the races we were at, the heat came back. So it was also hot out there for this weekend. They're in the 80s, I think, at least on Saturday for sure. So that played into it as well.
Yeah, looked dry and dusty out there. I mean, the little bit of footage I've seen it looked like another summer race. I loved seeing I want to go just to see this venue because I love there's like the slalom part. Like Instagram fed me like a video from last year where some kid like sent it super hard in the slalom section, and then I saw like some big stone steps in someone's video. So that's cool. I didn't know about that. So I was looking. I was like, come on, somebody give me some goodness. But
yeah, there's a run up, ride up decision, and part of it, one day there's a long kind of off camera descent that turns into a big climb. So there's some good stuff at Major Taylor. On the women's side, we had, again, one of the things we talked about as well is that this was a week that a lot of the people that we saw at the top of the USCX standings decided not to race. Yeah, it's just a fact of where Major Taylor landed in the schedule, that this was going to be the time when a lot of people were going to take the week off because they had raced 4 weekends in a row. This was the first C2 weekend, and we just didn't see the same competition that we had before. The one person sort of in that mix that did show up on the women's side, Caroline Manny, and she just went out there and did Caroline Manny stuff. It's just and the great thing for her is that she decided not to offer her Velo Mafia services for the weekend.
Oh, I didn't know that, because I thought she was just like grinding away.
She was going to, and she had some clients, and she was just like, guys, I'm taking this weekend off.
Yeah.
So I think that really played in her favor as well, because she was just able to chill out and not have to sit there and work 12-hour days and then also race her bike.
Yeah. No, and that, kind of paid off.
Yeah. And she was staying with Anna, who got third on Sunday, and I had the opportunity to talk to both of them about how their races went. So let's just listen to that one now. First off, just we've been to Major Taylor in the past where it's been kind of messy and muddy, and that whole lower section is just a slog. Doesn't seem like those were the conditions for this weekend. From what I understand, maybe a little windy and a little warm.
Yeah, it was hardcore concrete kind of status. I actually raced only once there. The guy was like, "Oh yeah, you've been here many times." I was like, "No, I believe I've been once in like probably 18." It's been a while, but it was super hardcore. That flat section close to the pit was just like, when it's almost too bumpy that you can put the power down because you're just bouncing around. That was it. And then Saturday was not too windy, but Sunday was definitely really windy. You could feel a difference.
Anna, what were you thinking getting onto this course? I mean, we haven't really talked before, so tell me just about your year so far in cyclocross.
My year so far has been pretty good. I took a little break after my road season ended in August, at the end of August, and then I just jumped straight into cyclocross. Did a few local races as training races, and then I traveled out to Trek. Had a pretty decent weekend there. With that course, it like bottlenecks in a lot of places. But came out here, I've been to this course as well, like 5 years ago, the first year I was traveling for UCI races, but I don't remember much. I don't think that year was muddy. I think we had a little bit of rain, but it wasn't anything like the years since 2019. But yesterday was pretty dry, and I mean the entire weekend, both Saturday and Sunday, dry, dusty, windy, but at least it wasn't hot.
Yeah. So on Saturday, Anna, where were you starting? It looked like maybe a little bit of a slower start to get in there from the beginning. I'm just going, all I have to look at is lap times. That's basically all I know about the race right now. So tell me about
you.
Yeah, I didn't have a good start on Saturday. And then once I started to move up, I had a few well, I had a couple of crashes throughout the race. The first one was in the first lap, and that set me back, and then another one, and then I dropped a chain. So it was a bit of a chaotic race for me on Saturday. Just being like starting to work up and then drop down again. And so, but I still had a good time. I got to practice in a pretty good field still. So
Yeah, so Carolyn, it looks like just looking at the lap times, looks like you were able to get off to a good start and just go from the gun.
Yeah, I mean, Lizzy's pretty strong. I've raced with her quite for many years now, so I knew I had to watch. And then the younger one, they can hold it for quite some time, so it's not like you could just get rid of them and be like bye bye. So she had a good start. We kind of pretty much gapped right away, and I think we'd stayed a lap and some change. But I think the course on Saturday was a little more to my favor to be able to get rid of her quicker than Sunday. But yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be tactical, make her work a little bit, and then get rid of her, and then do my own race. And then also like, like I've told you in the last few weeks, I have to keep a little bit of energy for day two. So I pretty much not soft pedal, but got a little easier on the last few lap after I got a gap.
Yeah, no, that's smart. So I mean, that's nice that you have that you were able to do that and save something for Sunday. Yeah, because we talked like how these day twos used to be
Yeah,
stronger. Day two was easy for you. Now it's definitely
not anymore.
not the same.
It's over.
How was, well, just sort of a little off topic, but related. How was the Velo Mafia set up this week? Was that smoother? Did that help you in your race prep?
Actually, that was my vacation weekend.
Okay.
I call my vacation weekend. So actually, I changed all my plans. Canceled Colin, my head mechanic flight to say, stay home, you need a weekend off. And then I said, I had a couple of sign up. I was like, hey, I am actually not going to do it this weekend. So I had no setup to put up. I actually yesterday was my friend Rob Donovan, so that she's racing for. And it was a relaxing weekend because all I had to do is sit with myself for hours. So I needed it. It's been great, and I'm excited for more. But I needed a weekend a little more chill. So I decided to just have a weekend without it, and then restart next week. So hopefully we'll have some sign up. It's definitely a lot more work on my plate and can be a little exhausting, but
Yeah,
we're
but
doing it.
you got a weekend to recharge and still race, and yeah, so sort of perfect scenario.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, it's great.
Anna, tell me what you changed from Saturday to Sunday going in there, and just how that battle for the podium played out.
um well, I had a better start on day two, and then I like a longer run into the beginning of the course, or like where the course starts to get more technical. So on day two um we had a pretty wide section of the course until the hill, and so I worked my way up to the front as much as I could. And then I just tried to stay as smooth as possible through that downhill into the woods, where people were trying to ride that section, the really steep one. Um, and it did bottleneck there, but not as bad as I thought it would. So I moved up a couple more places. Didn't ride it because it was just too trafficy, but and from there it was mostly smooth sailing. Like with four to go, I was sitting in third thinking, oh my, it's four more laps, so many opportunities to mess it up, but luckily nothing happened. So
Yeah, it looked like just the way it played out, you had Lizzy and Carolyn up ahead, and then there was a pretty big group behind you that was together, and it looks like you were kind of on your own for those last four laps.
yeah. I do prefer it that way just because I don't really have a strong kick. Um, like off the start or for the finish, I'm more of a uh like a 5 minute effort, 10 minute effort type of person. So I would like to do it if I had the chance, then I'd just be on my own.
Yeah,
which
great.
yesterday.
And was this your first UCI podium?
Yes, it was.
Oh, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Carolyn, it looked like on Sunday you and Lizzy were together maybe first 3 laps or so.
Yeah, she made me work. Damn. I mean, she is strong. I think she's someone we're gonna have to watch for the rest of the season because she had good kick. I pretty much attacked like, I don't know, 20 times before I got rid of her because I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to like learn where I can make the difference. This course was definitely a little more challenging, way shorter, a minute and a half shorter than the day prior, and then super windy. So if you were not you making that big gap, it was kind of easier for anyone to come back, and there was not as much corners. So pretty much in a really steep in the woods, a really steep section that I think it was in my advantage because I rode it every single time, and I'm still able to drop people going back on the bike, like just a little, a little effort. But yeah, I told her, I was like, hey, good job. It's like, you really made me work that day, like 3 laps of working hard. And finally I cracked her. I was like, okay, I need to keep going, putting the pressure, and cracked her, and same, just kind of finished strong, and had a pretty good day. But it was nice because I haven't been able to race in that position for quite some time. So you kind of forget to, the pressure of being leading, making mistakes, sliding your front wheels, hitting something stupid. So it was good for me to re-practice how to be leading a race and not mess it up because it's pretty easy to do.
All right. So Carolyn Manny, still just, still plugging along, just still one of the strongest out there. And it's going to be really interesting to see how she does next week, even along with that. And now that Clausel is gone, now that Bakker is gone, it sort of just changes what we had seen at the front of these races. For Major Taylor, it kind of all changed. And then next weekend at Cincy, I think we're going to see what's really shaken out for the domestic scene for the women's races.
Something we talked about last week coming into Major Taylor was just sort of the new narratives that pops up, the new riders who maybe will have a chance to shine when some of the other riders aren't there. And I was just thinking about looking at the results, Lizzy in second. I was thinking that it was so interesting to me that everybody I was talking to at like Rochester and Charm, and everybody was like, oh, Major Taylor, we might not be there, but it is the return of Lizzy Gunsalus. Like a lot of people were like bringing that up as like they were excited for her to come back to cross and excited to have her back in the scene. So Bill, you got to talk to her. Should we roll that?
Lizzy, before this weekend, was Worlds your last cyclocross race?
Yeah, it was Worlds.
And I know you had a big road season. What did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, there was a mixture of collegiate racing amongst all of the racing that I did with CCB. This year was the first year that I actually went to Europe to race on the road. So I got to do like a couple one-day UCI races. We did the Vuelta of Portugal for the women. That was like a 5-day stage race in Portugal. Did some Kermesse racing in Belgium. Did most of the domestic road season, I'd say. We kind of did a little bit less racing than we have in the past, focused a little bit more on stage racing. Did Redlands, did nationals, did all those things. And then once I got back from Europe in July, I took a break and then just had some fun with the collegiate mountain bike season until
nice. Yeah. Sweet. So with the so you did a couple kermesses, but not as many crits. I was going to say, like, as far as Belgian Dutch cyclocross training goes, it's like kermesse heavy. Did you feel like that kind of racing sort of at least got you some sort of feeling back for getting into cyclocross?
Yeah, I will say, I mean, for me, maybe it's just because I don't have as much experience with the Belgian road racing. The kermesse racing was some of the hardest racing I've ever done in my entire life. It was really, really intense. And I mean,
that's what it
cross
seemed
is
like.
also really intense.
Yeah.
Cross is really intense too, but like I've been doing cross for so long and I haven't been doing it for as long. So I feel like sometimes that effort can seem more intense.
How long are those kermesses that you were doing?
Almost 2 hours.
Oh, okay.
And it's hard. I mean, these girls are just out. Like if you win a kermesse, that could mean a contract for next year. like a professional, like real big girl contract. So you definitely feel that sort of intensity out there. Yeah, they're training races, but for a lot of these women, it's a big deal. So you can definitely feel that in terms of the unpredictability of people are just attacking for the sake of attacking. And it's more of like a selfish effort as opposed to like a 1 day UCI race when you have all these teams coming together and racing for one person.
Coming up there, really, it seemed like you and Carolyn were going to be battling through this for both days. Just talk me through at least day one, getting to the line and starting this race.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, my last cross race was Worlds, and that's months and months ago. So you never really know where you're going to stack up after a whole season of, I mean, it's been a long time since I've raced. And I've been putting in the work and doing the training, but also balancing a lot of aspects that I've got going on in my life. So you never know, like, did I do enough to be better, faster, stronger than I was last year? And I think for me, it was still a big question mark rolling up to the line. And I was nervous for sure. But I mean, the nerves mean that you care. So I really tried to lean into to how nice it really is to have a home court advantage, to be able to race on the course that I train on 2 days a week with my teammates. So I tried to really just remind myself to take the pressure off. It's a domestic C2. It's a big deal, but it's really also just another bike race. And you had all my friends there, all my teammates. So I really just tried to lean into that and just remind myself that I know what I'm doing and to just go out there and see what I can do.
Yeah, so just first couple laps, getting back into it. What's kind of the strategy? It seemed like I mean, Carolyn's always strong, and it seemed like it was you two, but then maybe she was able to get a gap at least on day one pretty early, but then you might have been out there in no man's land between her and the rest of the field.
Yeah, I mean, the first couple laps, like I wanted to make sure that I was up there and that I was staying smooth because there definitely were a few sections where if you made a bobble on the first lap, like you could lose a few spots. So I tried to push myself, but also remind myself that 5, 6 laps on that course is very taxing on the body. It's very bumpy. It's very groggy. Like it's a very heavy course, and that tech usually is not my cup of tea. So I just reminded myself of like take notes of how other people are racing. Don't expect to be winning. Don't expect to be in a certain spot. Just observe. And so I really tried to do that. And the first day, I'm trying to think exactly where the separation happened, but it just seemed like Caroline had this top end snap that I just couldn't match, honestly, on the first day. And it was like you said, it was really windy. So taking away from that, I realized I was like the third, fourth lap was hard for me, but the last lap I actually started feeling better once the gel that I took halfway through kicked in. So I reminded myself, I was like, well, last year I normally would have felt worse at this point. So tomorrow, like day two, more of my mindset going into the race was draft because there was like 15-mile-per-hour winds. And I know that on that basin, on the pavement section, if I know how to like sit an echelon against her, I can save a lot of energy. And so that's really what I did. And ultimately it was just a kick on the fourth lap right after I tried to take my gel in the start finish straight, but she was like swerving to try and get me to pull through. So I was like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to take it. So I waited until the second pavement section, and then she attacked right on that grass climb right afterwards. And I was so deep in the red that I just couldn't match the effort, but I felt really good on the last lap. So it just reminded me of like, I'm a lot stronger than I think that I am. So it's nice to feel like I got the nerves and everything shaked out, got some UCI points. So I'm feeling good.
Yeah, so right, so that day too, yeah, it looked like it was a much closer race for most of it till the last couple laps when you just described making that move. But yeah, so two days of racing in. Are you doing Cincy this weekend?
Yeah, so my plan is to do Cincy this weekend, and then the collegiate mountain bike national championships got like canceled, postponed.
Right.
We'll see because of the hurricane. So I'm actually going to go back home and do really rad.
Oh,
So I
nice.
get another weekend of UCI racing that I didn't expect to do, which is great because it's the C1 and I'll be able to stay at home for the week.
All right, so lots of good stuff there from Lizzy. Yeah, I was pretty sure she was still U23, but just confirming that, so she'll be back in the mix for nationals in the U23 field. Although Boedi, I don't know. We're going to see how she does at Cincy, and really rad. Is it up to us to pressure her to maybe jump into the elite field?
Well, I mean, I think that it seems wide open this year, right? We haven't heard anything from Clara, defending champion. We've seen that Katie Klaus has been the top-ranked American all season, pretty much. So, I mean, like, if there's a good chance for, you know, I didn't get to see Lizzy actually race this weekend, but, like, you know, could be a year to do it. You know, pull a Strohmeyer, come in and change things up a bit.
Breaking news, Boedi, exclusive, coming at you. By the time this goes up, it probably will have already been on the bulletin, so we can talk about it, and it won't look like you're behind from what's already up there. Yeah, I think I'm planning on publishing it on Wednesday, so yeah, probably about the same time this comes out. Carolyn Diesendorf wrote an article for me. I had her go track down Clara Honsinger to see what's going on, and her and Clara chatted. And yeah, if you haven't read it yet, head on over to the bulletin. Definitely worth a read.
Fantastic. I'm excited to have already checked that out and read it. I feel like a lot of folks will be excited to read this stuff.
Yeah.
This reminds me, and maybe I don't know if we table it for later, but the Nationals CX Nationals schedule is out, right? Some changes.
Yeah.
Elites midday on Saturday. Are all UCI races are on Saturday too, right?
Yeah. It was the one bummer is when I was talking to Tobin, which we'll get to that interview, I was asking him about, you know, racing nationals. And for some reason, when we had talked to him before, I just had assumed that he was racing nationals, but he's not, which is a bummer because I really wanted to have him in that single speed race as well.
Right, because that's on Sunday now.
Right.
So it's sort of the party race. All the elites can do their race and they can come back.
Yeah, Kerry in his interview from last week was, it was just wants everybody to show up and race that on Sunday. So
Kerry's like, I got to give Kenny a chance.
Exactly. Well, or even I think he's trying to get Kenny as much competition as he can. He wants people in there.
Well, I'm saying he wants to give a chance for Kenny to come back. You know, we haven't seen so much of Kenny this year. It's mostly been Kerry, business, serious.
Yes, I hear you. I understand. Yeah, for sure. All right, so that pretty much does it for the women's racing. Georgia Bond finished third on Saturday. I think she was on the road, so she was the one I was not able to catch up with in those interviews. But let's move over to Canada's not domination, but Canada's presence in the men's race, Boedi.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to go off my Saturday afternoon checking the lap times. I think I texted you. I was like, I don't really know Ian Ackert. Who's this guy? Because he seemed to be running away with the race. And then he had a few seconds. He had a 40-second gap or something, 20 seconds. It was a large enough gap, and it looked like it was Caleb and Tobin and maybe Tyler together. And so, but all of a sudden the results got shuffled, and all of a sudden Caleb was up top. So my big question was, what happened in the men's race?
Yeah, and so sort of weaving in this interview, so because it's Ian and Gunnar together. So both I talked to both of them at the same time. So this is going to take in some of day two and day one. Gunnar ended up winning that race on day two. Day one, Ian was out there on his own, just kind of crushing it. He I think he even mentions it kind of like Strohmeyer-esque off the line, just like he was gonna win this one from the gun.
We're already doing Strohmeyer-esque.
Wait for it. Strohmeyer-esque at the end too.
That's true. Okay. Well, I was like, that's not quite a footnote. If you're getting that dash-esque already to your name, I don't know if it's a footnote, Scott.
Ian's just going, and I think that it was funny because I thought he was alone when this happened, but like Tobin mentioned it, and I think Caleb mentioned it as well. He came by the but he talks about it in this interview, but he comes by the pits with like 2 to go and basically yells at his pit crew, I don't think I'm doing very well, or something along that line, or I don't feel well, or something like that. He didn't, it's 80 some degrees. He didn't have a bottle, no fluids at all, just absolutely overcooked. And blew himself up in those last couple laps and fell way back, which gave Caleb the opportunity on day 1. And then, he was able to kind of like right the ship on day 2. And it was him and Gunnar really dictating that race and kind of able to control it. The one thing, from Gunnar's part in this, he got stuck in the back of the grid on day 1. Here's a funny thing. So it's like, if you don't have any UCI points, it's random, right? They just randomly choose where you are going to grid. Basically, there was only a row and a half of people at this race who had UCI points. So without UCI points, you had the opportunity to get on the second row or the last row. I'm not sure what that was, row 5, whatever it may be. Gunnar, unlucky on day 1, was all the way back there. Even with a good race, couldn't work his way up to the leaders by the time the race ended. Day 2, he got into that second row. And at first I was like, they already applied the points? He's like, no one had points. So, but he got a better pick on the random pick, was in row 2. So he was right there with the leaders from the beginning, and then was able to go out front and really dictate the race. And him and Ian, and I think they had Tyler with them and Caleb as well. In the end, it ended up being the 3 Canadians taking podium, which was pretty cool. We talk about it a little bit in this interview, but yeah, I don't think there's ever been another time where a UCI Elite men's US race has been 3 Canadians.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that was something new. But yeah, let's listen to Gunnar and Ian Ackert.
All right. First off, I guess for both of you all, what was it like just making that transition coming from pretty solid mountain biking season and jumping right into cyclocross?
We both do one ride on the cross bike.
Yeah, we both did the pre-ride on Friday. First ride on the cross bike.
How was that, just getting back into the flow of it?
Well, I had to do 2 laps on clinchers before building up the confidence to go on to tubulars. But
yeah, it took me a while with pressure and relearning to hop the barriers, even the low ones here. Yeah.
How was it, just kind of fitness wise, and where you feeling in the season? And I know you all are heading to Cincinnati today. How much cyclocross are you going to do, or when does any time off come into play?
I think fitness wise, we were doing both pretty good from the last block of World Cups here, and then we both had sort of a week off, so freshness was high, which is good for cross. Yeah, I think we have quite different plans for cross. I'll let you say what you're gonna do, but I was hoping to do 4 weekends in North America, including Pan Ams and Nationals, but we're gonna have to see how that goes because I need a rest soon. It's been a long mountain bike season. But yeah, I don't think anything in Europe for now, even though I'd like to.
yeah, and I'm doing 4 race weekends here, Cincy, and then Pan Ams and Nationals, and then just trying to figure out the first race in Europe. I have a team camp in November, end of November, so I will already be in Europe, and it's kind of just of when I fly to Belgium to do the first race, but there will definitely be races over Christmas.
Nice. All right, let's talk about this weekend coming into Major Taylor. Great race. I like that venue, but also you're coming into a weekend where most of the people who are concentrating on cyclocross have raced for 4 or 5 weekends straight, and the field not as deep as I think you're going to see in Cincinnati. I'm assuming that was maybe even part of your plan, or just a good thing to work into cross again.
Well, last year we started with this one. Last year was the week before Trek Cup. And for me last year, it was to get points. And I think for both of us this year, it was for me to maintain the points and for Gunnar to get points.
I'm on the board now.
He's on the board now.
I think it was just the first weekend we could race cross as well.
That too.
After MSA. So
that too.
Yeah. So let's start with that Saturday race, because it looks all I can see. I'm just trying to like put together races from lap times. So it seems like both of y'all were there early, and then it sort of wasn't the same near the end. Gunnar, tell me about how that first race on into cross went.
So I was no points. So I started at the back, like 45 riders deep, I think. And I put in some good solid laps, but the front just got away a bit too far in the first 2 laps. So and I was kind of like learning how to ride my bike again. So I probably wasted a bit too much energy, and then I couldn't catch the front by the end of the race, but I could see them, which was fun.
And I think I had the exact opposite race on Saturday. I don't want to say pretty confident, but I was like, I knew the field. I've raced everyone last year, and I knew kind of where I was strong. So I was just sending out some feelers, and then I would do some digs, and the digs stuck, but then it was really hot. It was 27 degrees, and I didn't bring a bottle, and I definitely overheated. I think I gave the tech zone a little funny joke, because I went by and I yelled, "I'm feeling unwell" to Robert. So, I mean, the last 2 laps, I kind of just fade off, and you can see that in the lap times. So, yeah, that's what happened on Saturday.
Yeah, it looked like, definitely those last 2 laps, it looks like the wheels may have come off a little bit on that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, for both of you bouncing back on Sunday's racing, I mean, I guess starting with you, Ian, knowing that you were having those issues with the heat, what did you do to prepare for Sunday? What did you do differently?
Well, I brought a bottle. First
good start.
I still did a couple attacks, and some of them stuck in the first 2 laps. We had a little gap, but then I could always see this highlighter green color behind us, so I kind of wanted to have some fun. So maybe I let up a little bit, and we all came back together, and then we had a really fun battle.
Yeah, so it was, this was kind of the fun thing to see. Just from a Canada perspective, it was you two, and it was also Tyler Clark up there as well. And then I guess Caleb was there for a while, Caleb winning the race the day before. So was he kind of like in your peripheral, thinking, at least this is the guy I gotta worry about here at the beginning?
He was sending some. He was definitely going for it, and he was definitely maybe he saw that I sat up a little bit, and we were having some chit chat mid race. So yeah, I don't know if he liked that I sat up, but I think it made it more fun.
Yeah, and Gunnar looks like, starting from the back again, but I think it looks probably, if I'm again looking at lap times, lap 2 is really when you sort of made a move, and everybody else maybe slowed down a little at the front. How was it compared to Saturday, getting into with those leaders?
I got to start second row actually, which was
so
nice.
they redid the points.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's nice. Yeah.
Well, they did a second random. They like re-randomized the call up. So.
I got you. So only the first row were people with points, and
Yeah.
then okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I was lucky that way. I kind of held position on the start, and then yeah, you just had to be, I think, patient on this course. It was getting pretty blown out. And you'd waste a lot of energy to, if you're like, I need to be at the front after one lap, it's like, no, just wait. So yeah, I chased on, made a couple mistakes in the race, so I had to chase back on a couple times. And then I think with 3 to go, it was Tyler, you and I
Yeah,
at the front.
we went into the woods section all together with Caleb, and then when we came out of the with that dual slalom jump line thing, it was just the three of us. So I don't know who was on the front, but I think we saw that and pinned it a little bit.
Yeah, and then I think I used the 3 to go lap to like settle in because I hadn't stayed in one group for the whole race yet. And then 2 to go, I wanted it to just be like a battle between us two. So I put in a digger, and then the last lap we had some fun.
Yeah, tell me about this finish here. I mean, it looks like it came right down to the line.
Well, my attack on lap 2, Ian figured out, well, like he got to see it and sort of judge my attack. So he attacked in the same spot. So I couldn't really on the last lap, and I was going to go there. So yeah. But I also knew he was going to go at the barriers, which he did, because I wasn't quite as fast there. But then I knew he had to lead into the finish, so I just gave it everything to stay in the front there.
And I thought that I could get by at the
Like
finish.
you almost did.
So
I think you
conditions at Major Taylor. I've been there before when it's been just a complete swamp and the whole lower section is muddy. It looked like it was dry. Was it windy? What were you dealing with out there?
It was very windy, and that's why, I mean, the second day was even windier than the first day. So some of the attacks were definitely playing with the wind. On the last lap, I knew that I was leading into one of the climbs, and I knew Gunnar would attack there because he could get a good slingshot. So that's where he's saying that I attacked there just to kind of try and hold him off. But yeah, like there's so many straightaways on that course too that you really have to be like, oh, this one's headwind, this one's tailwind, which one to push in, which one to take into consideration. So
Nice. All right, just to wrap up here, going into Cincy, as I said, you got like, I think Strohmeyer showing up, you got Funston, Curtis, the sort of that contingent that will be there. You guys seem like you were working together on this one a little bit until you weren't. Is that kind of the plan going into Cincy?
I think so. Yeah. We'll have some fun for sure. Try and have some fun together.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, I'll be out there. Look forward to seeing you. And thanks for taking the time to chat.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
See you there.
So I guess the Canadians are going to try some gravel world tactics, where maybe non-team tactics at Cincy.
Canada just seems like all one big happy team.
I mean, I feel like this happens. Like there are levels and there are priorities, and so if you like maybe go to the bike race and you travel across state lines and you're at a different race, and there is someone from your town but a different team maybe gets in the break, maybe you don't try and chase them, right? Because you're like, that's my New Orleans friend. Like let some guy from this state chase them. So I can see how there are some allegiances that can be formed. Let's see what the Americans decide to do.
It's the anti-Jens vote philosophy. When I forget, I think it was like the Tour or something, and there was like a German out front, and he went and like chased him down, and people were all mad at him for like chasing down his countrymen. He was like, Germany doesn't pay me to race bikes.
Trek does.
That's right.
Um,
But
I-
but I don't know if anybody's paying anybody to race cyclocross
Right,
bikes.
that's true.
So all bets are off.
I just had to quickly look at Gunnar Holmgren's results because, he's a name that I know of. He's been around, but we hadn't seen him a lot. And so you talked about him not having points. He didn't race at all last year. That's why I was like,
that'll
looking
do
at
it.
Yeah, like he had no points. And I was actually the last time he's won an elite race he was a U23 rider at, he won PTBOCX Lift Lock Cross.
Was that was that the same weekend as Nationals? Or
Yeah,
is that okay.
Yeah, he won the U23 Nationals race. Then he came back the next day and won the elite race. And he beats Van de Ham and Kabush. I mean, so he was racing age 19. So good on Gunnar. Getting another win in his belt. It's fun to kind of hear what happened to Ian and just sort of how that all played out.
More domestic wins this year than either of his sisters. So he has bragging rights at the table so far.
Yes, statement.
All right. Other players in that podium hunt at Major Taylor. We had Caleb and also Tobin, who ended up getting sick on day 2. That's why he dropped out of there. Caleb, kind of was able to take advantage of Ian falling apart there. And then, as they talk about, was also kind of like one of the guys that Gunnar and Ian wanted to try to get rid of on that Sunday. But good season. Caleb, abbreviated season, not doing as much cross racing as he did last year. He won in Englewood. Hasn't raced since then. Came back and won a race here. So really not. If you're going to do an abbreviated season, Boedi, that's kind of the way to do it.
Get a couple wins, get some points. I mean, that's solid.
Yeah, going into, I think he's going to be someone to be reckoned with going into Cincy. But let's hear about Caleb.
So Saturday, I chatted with Gunnar and Ian. It sounds like Ian kind of channeled some Strohmeyer energy there at the beginning of the race and just kind of took off. And then it seemed like you all were in for a chase for a while.
Yeah, I think he definitely took it underway there and started swinging from the gun. Took me a lap or two to kind of get the legs firing for whatever reason. You train midweek, you rest, and you do openers, and sometimes it's perfect, sometimes it takes a lap to like really get firing. And so first lap or two, I was sitting fourth, fifth wheel, and I was like, uh-oh. I was like, oh boy, I better get up there. And then, third lap hit, and I was like, okay, I'm going to get on Ian right now. I threw in a couple well-timed attacks to kind of stretch the group, and then eventually Ian and I basically separated and made it into a two-man race. But, we weren't way off the front. So, we were only, one slide out, one mistake away from being swallowed back up by those chasers.
Yeah, and then it seems like he kind of fell apart a little bit towards the end, but you were able to drive it home as well.
Yeah, so he was on the third to last lap. Basically, the two most decisive parts of the course were the off camber shortly after the start along the side of the velodrome. If you don't know, there's a velodrome on this course. The unique part of Major Taylor is we race in and through the velodrome, and then climb up to the top of it and do an off camber and a run up and a descent. And that being the second most important feature was there's a run ride up, and it was pretty easy to do with Grifos, but I chose to race file treads. I like my chicanes, if you know me, if you know anything about me. Granted, the other race I've won this year was on dunes, so I'm growing as an athlete, but then you really received a boon to be leading through that first half of the course, because you just had a right away for those technical sections. The saying goes, if you're going to make a mistake, make it in front, or just don't make a mistake, ideally, which is what Ian did. And then I made a mistake behind him, and he had about a 10-second gap as I had to run that ride up and then remount, sprint across the top, drop in, climb back up the top of the hill. So then he had basically half a lap there solo with me about 8-10 seconds back. I was kind of steadily gaining on him, but going from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, depending on the course. And then all of a sudden at the end of the penultimate lap, it went from slowly to all of a sudden it was like boom. And I'm like, oh, I was feeling really solid. I was feeling really steady, like just being patient, not panicking, not giving up. It's like, oh, second's pretty good. And I'm like, no, but I can catch him. And then apparently he went by the pit and yelled something along the lines of, I'm not doing so good. And, basically that gap, disappeared, which only happens if they're either A, waiting for you because they're like, oh, I can't be out here solo, or they just thermo nuked. And I'm like, oh, he just absolutely blew. So I caught him right before the barriers and then just immediately just punched it through him as hard as I could, because I was like, God, this dude just, all respect to him, but I'm like, this dude just blew up. Like, I got to go now. Basically punched it through those next two corners, broke the elastic and created a 15-second gap and held it to the end. And then that chase group kind of swallowed him up. And, then Tyler Clark went for second, and I'm blanking. Sorry, help me out.
Oh yeah, no, Tobin finished third. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's absolutely it. I think the lesson there is sort of what was going through your head. Second's cool, but may as well keep driving because you never know. And as we always joke about, anything can happen, and this is one of those instances it did.
Yeah, exactly.
So coming into Sunday, little different scenario. First off, Ian decided to put a bottle on his bike, so that I think
I saw it on the start line on Saturday. I was like, ooh, big mistake. And I had a bottle just full of ice, it was half water. You fill the bottle completely up with ice, and you've only got half of it can even be liquid. But I was like, yeah, I saw it. I'm like, ooh, I'm like, all right, buddy, it's 82 degrees. You're from Canada.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Canada, they kind of ganged up on you on Sunday.
They did. Honestly, I don't think it was. I don't know if it was premeditated or not, but I think maybe it was. But either way, they rode the way you need to ride that race to win. And I had some mistakes. I had some positioning errors, and just got caught on the Gunnar and had him haul me back up to the front a couple times, but wasn't efficient. And eventually that elastic broke up and over the top with 2, 3 or 4 to go. And it was, without some of those more technical features Sunday, it was just a road race, with basically, very little to no finesse needed. And yeah, they had those little gaps, and it was so windy. It was so fast. It was you're on your own all of a sudden. It was me and Miles Mattern. Yeah, just too many mistakes on my part tactically to I needed to be right there on Ian in between those other guys, breaking them up, not letting anybody else, jam it up into the ride up or the off camber. And yeah, so that was on me for sure.
All right, next up, let's hear from Tyler Clark, who finished second on day 1 and third on day 2.
Starting with Saturday, it looked like you and Caleb and Tobin had a pretty good battle up there. Tell me how that sort of played out for that race.
Yeah. I mean, it actually kind of finished up a little bit different than it looked kind of first half of the race. Ian Ackert went out hard, full Andrew Strohmeyer style, hit it from the beginning, made us all work for the first couple laps. Major Taylor has kind of pretty cool. We go through the velodrome and then up the side right next to where the grandstands are. And there was a bit of a tricky ride up there. You kind of came in on a pretty blown out corner and then had to go straight up. And I messed it up one lap. Caleb and Ian got a gap, and then the two of them had maybe 15 or 20 seconds on on Tobin and I for a good portion of the race. It was pretty hot, so I think Ian kind of overcooked it and overheated a bit in the last few laps, and he kind of that's when he started going backwards a bit. Caleb had his gap, and then it was Tobin, Tobin, and Miles Mattern for I don't know, most of the race all glued together. Each of us kind of tried to do our thing, but no one really ever got anything until last lap. Miles came off the back a little bit, and then Tobin and I had a good sprint all the way to the line. So, and then yeah, at that point, Caleb was out by himself, and all he had to do was hold the gap and kind of cruise in at the end.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, I just talked to Ian and he was didn't race without a bottle, and that seemed to
Yeah,
he
that
fixed
would have
that on
hurt.
Sunday.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it sounds like it was hot out there. But just racing, have you and Tobin raced together at all? I mean, Tobin's been around forever, so it's kind of fun to have him back in this scene and racing.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started racing cross, was kind of the 2 years that Tobin was like smashing up at the front of the races. So when I kind of started racing in the U23s, I think he was starting to kind of do a little bit of different things. A couple of years where he wasn't racing too much, so I haven't got to race him as regularly as a lot of the other guys. But last few seasons, like when he's kind of jumped in and out, he came down to Hendersonville last year, so racing against him, Kerry, and Kurtz was fun there. And then I've raced him a couple times in the mountain bike as well, but I'd say not as frequent as a lot of those other guys for sure.
Yeah, coming off the USCX, little different crowd in Indy. I assume you're going to be racing in Cincy next weekend.
Yep,
So
we're headed all day.
yeah, so how was this just as a kind of a different feel to it? Did you feel like this was a weekend that you could maybe take advantage of the different field?
Yeah, absolutely. I was coming in, I was hoping yeah, it'd be a little bit less deep of a field, a little bit kind of smaller group racing at the front, which it kind of did turn out to be. We still ended up both days having a group of 5 or 6 pretty far into the race, but a little bit like a bit more tactical. You'd have to be like on the gas as much as you do in the USCX races, and not have to worry about guys in 7th, 8th, 10th coming back. So that definitely made it a little different. I'd say the front end was with Ian and Gunnar there, especially on day 2. It was just as hard. Like we kind of all out those last few laps. Like the two of them really kind of up the pace, and I was just kind of dangling on the back. But it was fun to kind of race up again on the podium both days versus like USCX. It's like trying to get in the top 5 when you can. It was kind of a nice change up here for that.
Yeah, so I chatted with Gunnar and Ian, and they both I think we're talking about having that group at the end of Sunday with that included those two, you and Caleb as well. And I think there was one lap maybe with 2 to go that you all went into the woods together, and then I guess Caleb dropped off a little bit, and that's when they hit it. And yeah, it was just all Canada up there, which was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet. I don't, they were kind of saying after the race, like, I don't know if any of us remember a single other US race where it was all 3 Canadians in the podium. So that was it was really cool racing like that for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So was it just that pace that I think Gunnar said that he just wanted to hit it after Caleb dropped off a little bit, and that's kind of when they got away from you as well?
Yeah, we go up like a little bit different on Sunday for compared to Saturday, but we kind of do this like single track kind of steep uphill, and the two of them hit it there every lap, and usually I could kind of crawl my way back before the dual slalom, but they kept on the gas on the second last lap, and tried my best in the field to close as far as I could, and made it pretty close, and then just wheels came off, and they just kept going.
So you had a pretty big mountain bike season, and then coming into cross, what's the rest of your cyclocross season looking like? Is nationals a goal again for you?
Yeah, for sure. Nationals probably the big goal for the season. I did a little bit less mountain bike this year than I have in the past, just because I wanted to give a proper go at cross, and I didn't really want to be racing well into August and then take a quick week off and then try and scramble to get ready. So a little bit more prep this year for cross, which was nice. And I'll be doing Cincy next weekend, and then we'll travel up to Pan Am's, and then we've got nationals the weekend after. So pretty quick season for us, like in North America. Everything's pretty crammed together, and then I'll probably skip out on Christmas Cross and then head out to Worlds after that.
Nice. All right, that's good. A good season there. At the rest of the Armada crew joining you now going forward.
My brother's actually going to be at Cincy next weekend, so that'll be fun to have him there. The other two are at school and don't race much cross, so it's mostly just mountain bike focus for that. But yeah, my brother will be there next weekend, so we'll have an even bigger crew of Canadians. That'll be fun.
And finally, just to finish up everything we have from Major Taylor, one of our favorites always to talk to, who's going back to gravel after this weekend. Let's hear from Tobin.
Good day on Saturday. Just let's start there. Tell me about that field and just how that went.
Yeah, so good day on Saturday. The course was pretty cool. I think this is a pretty underrated race in my opinion. It seems like not a ton of people always go to this one, and I think it gets kind of a at least this year had a pretty bad spot on the calendar, being after the 4 consecutive weekends of the US CX races. So people are looking to take a weekend off before going to Ohio for the next C1. But yeah, I liked the course. It was, pretty fast and kind of flat. There's a hillside that they make use of, but yeah, I had enough points from the last few weeks so I could start in the front row and was able to have decent starts both days. Was second on Saturday into the whole shot behind Ian Ackert, who was riding very aggressive on the first lap, like punching really hard out of every single corner. And looking back a bit, which, I was like looking back and punching, I was like, you cocky little son. So I was doing a lot of the work to get him back on Saturday at the start. And then, yeah, eventually caught him. And then it was pretty quickly down to a group of I'd say 6 of us or so, maybe. It was Ian was in the group and Caleb Swartz and Miles Mattern, myself, Tyler Clark, and there's 1 or 2 other guys that were starting to do the yo-yo, but we're still there.
Looks like Gunnar may have made it up there by that time.
I don't think Gunnar on Saturday ever quite made it.
Okay.
He was pretty buried on the start.
Yeah.
He wasn't terribly far off, but
Yeah.
he never, I don't think, actually made it to the front group.
Yeah, it was funny. I was talking to him. Yeah, that makes sense because he was like back row on the first day and then second row on the second day. I was like, they already used you. How did they get points for the second day? He was like, no, there was just only people on the front row had points.
There wasn't a ton of people. I think it was 12 riders had points.
Yeah, and everybody else is just random.
So yeah, Gunnar had a lucky second day start. But yeah, let's see. So
let me ask you about this. Just following up on the venue and the track. It seems like so you have the features that I mean. Again, this isn't a muddy Major Taylor, which completely changes everything because then that whole lower half is just a slog and super hard. Now it's just kind of fast in a race course. But you have the kind of the one climb to get to the top, and then you have the long off camber descent, and then you kind of U-turn up and then climb back up to the wooded section. It seems like that climb is what, from what I'm understanding, is where moves are made or people are dropped. Is that right?
Yeah, so on day 1, there was this a run up / climb. It was rideable, but it was tricky because you had to kind of cut across the main line that was really loose and then ride the section that hadn't been ran on for any grip. So on Saturday, we had basically a run up / ride, and then you go across these grandstands and then a descent back down and then a climb back to the grandstands. So that was Saturday's course. And then Sunday, the run-up ride thing wasn't there, and there was just a climb to the top of the grandstands, an off-camber down, and then a climb up the back, which is kind of more what you just talked about.
Okay,
so what you just talked about was Sunday.
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. So once it all sort of comes back together, how does that race play out for those final couple laps?
I like in thinking back on it, it wasn't really anything profound. At some point, Ian and Caleb got away, and then Tyler, Clark, myself, and Miles
Yeah.
were chasing. And so we were chasing for third, and that's the last spot on the podium. So that's obviously an important spot. And then, like I said, nothing super important happened. With about 1.5 to go, all of a sudden, Ian Ackert's coming back to us, and he just punched his own ticket, like just completely detonated. So all of a sudden, yeah, our little group of three is now racing for second and third, instead of just third. And then on the last lap, I was third place in my group, so I was fourth on the track. And going into the little run/ride, I think Tyler ran it. I went into it behind Miles, and Miles also rode it, but maybe I rode it a little better and passed Miles there, so was in third at that point. And Tyler punched it real hard across the top, which Miles never quite made it back onto the group from. And then Tyler the course doesn't have a ton of passing opportunities from about the last half to the finish line. And Tyler just rode a pretty smart race, like accelerated where he needed to, and then could take a break where I wasn't able to pass. There was a moment where I saw kind of my last opportunity to make an aggressive pass and was just gassed. And then there was one more opportunity to potentially make a pass, and I was winding it up, and I think Tyler heard me shift and just accelerated again to defend. And he and I pop out into the pavement together, and he just got it was on the pedals just slightly quicker than me, and it was a bike throw, but he did beat me in the sprint, which was painful.
Yeah.
But third place, I was happy to get another podium. And I was, like I mentioned, I was racing with a cold, which sucks for cyclocross. It's really not fun.
Yeah, you can't really hide anywhere out there. So Sunday but even though you were feeling under the weather, you started on Sunday.
Yeah, Saturday after the race, I felt really bad. Like it wasn't cold out, but I was like got in the car and I felt cold, had the seat warmers on all the way back to the house, and then took a shower and I was still chilly, and then put your hoodie on after dinner, and then all of a sudden you're too hot and you're just like, oh no, this is all bad. So my thought was like, if I wake up on Sunday and I feel like this, no chance I'm racing. But Sunday morning, woke up generally feeling a little better. So I lined up, and then, on Sunday had a good start, was there, had a better first few laps than I did the day before, but then just wasn't recovering, and I just couldn't even hang. Like after, I think 40 minutes or so, I was just blown out of the group and had nothing left to give. And I don't know. I've only pulled out of a few races in my life, so it feels bad, and you question your decision and whatnot. So for me, it was like I was in sixth place at that point, and I could finish the race for sixth probably. But it's a C2, so it's not like there's a lot of points or money for sixth place. And then I'm going to Arkansas to race Big Sugar this week. So at that point, I was kind of like, got to make sure I'm healthy and not digging a hole, because I hopefully have this thing kicked, because I can't really show up to the house with a cold and get everyone else sick. So, a bit of a cost benefit thought out there on Sunday, and just, once I was popped out of the group that was competing for a podium, I just kind of pulled the plug, which, not like super proud of doing that, but was also kind of a bigger picture to finish off the season situation.
Yeah, for sure. You got more of your paying job coming up here next week.
Yeah, for better or worse. Yeah, you get it.
All right, so that's it. Kind of a wrap on Major Taylor. It's one of those things, like, I know we weren't there, but at least we had the opportunity to hear from folks who were. So I hope if you're listening to that all worked out. And I know that some of these interviews ran a little long, but it was some folks that we hadn't heard from yet.
Hey, Bill, it's not nothing, okay? And that was but my favorite part of the last month was talking to the riders post race and getting sort of that insider intel. So yeah, I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, no, it's something I think we can continue to do because folks seem to dig that. Boedi, we had our first exact cross race of the year. So going back to last year, we were talking about this before we started recording, and this was kind of the season opener last year, and we had some like early Euro themes from this. We looked at this, and I think coronated a new cyclocross king in this race who was going to rule cyclocross for years to come, in Thibaut Ness, who ran away with this one. We had Lars van der Haar at the beginning of the race last year, who just took off and, was, in my eyes, emulating Sepp Kuss and doing a little GC Lars action at the beginning of that race and just stretching everything off and softening everybody up for Thibaut to attack later on. That was a hot, dry, dusty Beringen. We had to look at last year's versus this year for a little while to figure out if they were even at the same place.
Right. I think that was sort of my first note. Beringen, Be Mine cross. Different. They changed the course. And, it's at the slag heap. There's a museum.
Did they change the course or they changed some of the sort of the nuances of the course? It seemed like a lot of it was the same kind of basic track.
Well, I think, they used to kind of just like go up the hill, ride around it, kind of come down, maybe go back up, maybe go back down. Here they seem to sort of use the hill, but then they have a whole bunch of flat area that seems new, the muddy, boggy area. It seems different to me. And it's probably a more complete cyclocross course. I kind of liked the old version, maybe not the way they had the off-camera last year, which seemed super dangerous. But I remember like 2 or 3 years ago, it was really kind of like a lot of like chutes and ladders type stuff, mountain bikey, little off-camber turns, and it was pretty fast. But so I think they've changed it. And I think that was kind of what their riders had wanted. And I think they did a good job, like I said, of making it more a complete course. So, but we did have that, we had the off-camber that last year was super fast and much more steep. This year, they seemed to mellow out that angle, kind of took it out a lot longer. And it was a really good feature. Like basically in the women's race, all the people who tried to take the race by the scruff of the neck, like found themselves there, like bending, doing the cyclocross bend, fixing their chain, right? And the one who rode it best, Fem, nice and smoothly, went away and won the race. I think it changed, but probably for the better.
That off camber, the big long off camber, I think you're right in that it changed where it became much slower, and I think it became 100% better feature. Last year, I believe that's where Lawrence Sweck injured himself on that. He crashed into a post because it was just screaming fast. And it
was like almost straight down.
Yeah, which was a spectacle, but just didn't seem like the best thing. This year, they have had it where it had 2 distinct lines on this really tricky off camber. It had rained, so it was muddy and slick. It was really just spectacular to watch the entry of that feature, because the best line was to go low and then to scoot up to high about a third into it. There was just this little midline that cut from the low line to the high line. But then if you had people who were like already on the high line, you had to sort of like squeeze into there. So there's so many just small little nuanced challenges to that feature. And yeah, if you just got it a little off, then you were down. Alvarado looked awesome in this race. I was like, this is great, and I hope she continues. She looks really strong, but she got that top line a little bit wrong, slid down, knocked her chain off, and then that was kind of it. It was lap 2. She had a nice gap. Like Fem was back there, Casasola was back there. They were both chasing, Alvarado was on her own, looking great, and it just, that's what it took. And between that off camber, and then it turned into another tricky off camber, a right turn into an off camber. That's, what I'm sure we'll talk about with Ryan Kamp and Haley Iserbyt getting into it later in it. That was super tricky, where you look at it last year and it's again, I think it's because it's dry, but I think it was much wider. So they wouldn't have had that issue, because I think that they moved that lower fence up some. And then that's kind of like squeezed everybody together, which again made it into a cool feature. You had the really fast sweeping left-hander that looks a lot like the I'm blanking on the race on the F1 track. Zolder off camber, like left-hand off camber, like very similar, just mainly because that's something that like Lars van der Haar just has nailed, and he did again there. So really fast off camber there as well. And we had a mud pit this year that I think was a huge factor. Is this right turn mud pit sort of near the finish, about a third of the way to the finish, that played into these races as well. But yeah, women's side, I think you nailed it. Fem Van Empel rode smooth, and that was basically it. And she's, was able to climb better than anyone else, and then just kept it smooth and kept it almost boring on her way to this win, which was pretty spectacular to watch.
Yeah, I think Fem was, before the race, Fem was excited to get back into cross. I can't think about Fem and not think about Puck and sort of their sort of careers and how they've sort of been on similar paths, but they have sort of, they have diverged a bit, where, the last time Fem raced was the Tour de France Femme, and she was up there in moves, and she was active participant. But Puck had such a bigger, road season. Also mountain bike, very successful there. So it kind of seemed like Fem, was excited to get back to the sport that she was really good at and has these skills, and just seems to be made to do cross. You mentioned Alvarado. Yeah, I mean, looks best the rest. That's what you want to see. Casasola got out to a hot start. She had a hot start last year. She kind of, I don't know, maybe broke into the mainstream or came to our attention really in sort of, some top tens, at World Cups, third at Euros, made a name for herself, joined a new team. So
she must have had a mechanical or something. Yeah,
she had also had a mechanical. She got her chain stuck as well and ran a long ways. So right, so we're kind of seeing what the women's field is shaping up. Brand in third, Aniek in fourth, Alicia Frank in fifth. But it's good. But it was not the tactical battle that we saw in the men's race. It was not as varied. There was it's not as heated. Fem did stomp on the competition, but
but Alvarado, I'm telling you, this is gonna be fun to watch. Fastest lap on that first lap, and then put in some fast laps near the end as well. Where if you look at Van Empel's lap time, it's just like steady as she goes whole way around. So good start from there. But we have to talk about this men's race.
We do. Where do we?
Here's where we should start.
Kamp figure.
I don't. Here's my couple takeaways from this. We had the two-tone army out there for a little while, which was fun with Van der Bosch and Arts.
Tone violence. Yeah, love to see it.
Tone Arts looks good.
He does.
That was my first takeaway from this. He had a couple moves midway and kind of in the later stages of this race where he looked like he did, I think, even 5 or 6 years ago before he got injured and before his suspension. I think it's going to be really interesting. He's looking super strong. I think he just needs to figure out how to finish these races. But that was fun to watch. That was the first thing. And then the second part of this, and I guess we'll just get into the whole sauces of it. Man, sauces drama all the way through. Here was what I found interesting about how the drama started. It looked like Michael Van Toornout was controlling the race, and he was doing a lot of looking behind him. And I have to think that he was looking for Iserbyt, who was kind of dropped off the back a little bit,
Right.
in that second pack. We're talking 3 laps into the race, or maybe even 2, and they come off of that tricky off camber. They do a little bit of a climb, and it really looks like Mikey V is up there just soft pedaling, just letting the group all come back together. And I feel like Iserbyt saw that and was able to kind of close that gap. And then it all kind of accordioned together. And then the group is back together. Van Toornout and the rest of the leaders have made their way down there. And I think Iserbyt's like, I'm in the wrong spot. This is my opportunity. And they come in there sort of like 2-3 wide to the turn. And then what?
Yeah, so it seems that, gosh, I should have pulled it up. But basically what happens is Iserbyt and Kamp come together, and Iserbyt actually falls pretty hard onto...
It looked like Iserbyt was on the outside going down. Kamp comes up high alongside of him and kind of like forces him down more. They're like riding side by side, and he kind of forces him down. Iserbyt loses his balance and just kind of impales himself on a post.
Right. Iserbyt's on the outside, Kamp's on the inside. Yeah, like you said, he slides down the off camber, pushes Iserbyt to the left side. Iserbyt hits a post really hard. These aren't your plastic stakes. This is a solid metal,
wood.
Solid piece of wood in the ground. Kind of does a little bit of a ragdoll on it, and then he gets up pretty. I mean, he like is crawling around in the grass. Gets up pretty angry and walks over Kamp's bike. Like literally puts one foot on like the seat tube, and then just stomps the back wheel. Like I think Kamp's bike is drive side down, so he is, he's pushing the rear mech into the dirt. And then I think one of the most interesting things that happens here is Kamp grabs him, like literally grabs his arm and doesn't let him go. And Iserbyt doesn't try and like shove him off, or like he just stands there and he kind of takes the mouthful that Kamp is giving him. And it lasts a few moments. And it's like, in that sense, I was like, because he didn't immediately push away from Kamp, did he sort of like recognize right away, oh, I effed up big time, and I kind of got to take it. Like, I just have to like he could like react and it could get worse, or he just kind of takes it and then just moves on. And, that's what happened. And
I think you're exactly right. I think he knew in the instant it happened. And I think that you're right. It was that him grabbing him sort of just centered him into, I just screwed up here.
Yeah.
This was not good or correct. And even in his defense, he says like something back to him, but not really. And then, his chain's off or something. Yes, he can't even leave, and they're both kind of stuck there trying to fix their bikes. And even after that, he's not, and he's stretching his back. And he obviously isn't feeling great about it, and then rolls down through, and then gets a new bike in the pits. And then Kamp comes down there, and he's chirping with his old, it was God, I forget the guy now that just got traded to the Timberwolves, who's yelling at the Knicks bench during the game. This is what happens when you're in control type thing. Like Kamp, who was on the sauces, is like yelling at the sauces in the pits as he's rolling by. And maybe they had seen it on the big screen or not, but they're looking at him like, what are you yelling at us about? So that was the drama there. But then Ailey was kind of done, and he rolls around for another lap or so, goes through the pits, and the commissar in the pits basically gives him the stop sign and says, you are no longer in this race, sir.
Right.
Please exit left.
It was the him turning into the X of the pit that made you know that like, oh, it's over. Like this is.
So and then the aftermath of that is like, we've talked about this for years, and I think that all of us have kind of come around on, or all of us meaning you, me, Zach, in the previous years, where we're kind of down on Iserbyt a little bit, kind of like the villain, and then you talk to the guy, you see him race, and I like him. I like him. I think he's really good for the sport. He's the guy that shows up every year.
Yep.
And is kind of
he's all in on cyclocross too.
All in on cyclocross. He's the instigator. He's early, season. The guy that's just out there to get it. He's looking for World Cup wins. He's looking for leads. I like him, and I think he's really good for the sport. Every time I've talked to him, he's been super positive and, always saying the right things. I think he lost his cool.
Yeah.
I think that he has baggage with Ryan Kamp. Obviously there was not good team chemistry when he was on the sauces, and that's, the reason, that's what seems to be what they're intimating, that he didn't come back. So there's a lot there. And he even said that, this started last season, and he tried to rationalize it with the way that Kamp rides. I don't think you can do that. But he also, in the press, and had statements, like, was not defending his actions at all. He was like, I was wrong. That was dumb. I was wrong. And I'm kind of like okay with that, to just move on. Like, he got disqualified. Everybody's like, oh, he should get suspended. He should be out of the sport, whatever. I'm like, I don't know. It's like team sports, people are pushing and shoving each other all the time. I mean, it's why you have a penalty box in hockey. These things happen. Do we want them to happen? No, but they happen. Should he be stomped on his bike? No, that sucks. That was like a really not good thing to do. But I don't know. You can fine him. I'm sure that I think there's something in there for him to be issued a fine. But as far as suspending the guy or like all this kind of hate that's going towards him, yeah, I don't think that's warranted.
So I should have done my homework, and I was like, is there a rule in the UCI rule book that sort of would address this sort of situation, this physical altercation, this sort of intentional damage? Because that's the thing, like, it is like this intentional damage of the other team's bike, property, whatever you want to get at the property, issues. But like in road racing, the UCI has like, are going to issue, I can't remember if they started this year.
The yellow cards, right?
The yellow cards, right? So like, I mean, maybe this is a situation where something like this is like, I mean, I think it's a really egregious act. I think the crashing happens in cross, rubbing is racing. That's all fine and good, but there's a line that was crossed. He crossed the line. And so, okay, DQ, he got DQ.
Even the shoving, even if they were like grabbing each other as they were getting up, it's like, we've seen all that.
Right.
It's the going after the guy's bike.
It's that move was the one. And so it's like, I could see I just had this idea, a half race suspension. He like has to come back. I don't know. Like you can't do that, but like it's like start
like a McCormick start. Like he has to wait
exactly.
a minute.
Yeah, he has to start at the back, or he has to wait 30 seconds. He has to start with the riders out contracts at the back. Like I could see some additional penalty, but like I'm not gonna. I could also be fine with him just being disqualified. I think maybe a fine, like doesn't need a big fine. I think there should be some sort of statement or something is like it's just like you can't, like there's a line that's crossed, you got physical, you attack someone's equipment, like it wasn't a racing action, right? And that's the thing, like in road racing, you take your hands off your bars and you like hit somebody, like you get a fine. I don't know if you might get suspended, you might get pulled from that race, So, and yeah, they mentioned, everybody has looked at the footage from last year where, Kamp and Vanternout got into it. And like that thing, I never saw the inciting incident, right? So in that situation, wasn't it? It was Kamp who was holding, or no, it was Vanternout who was holding on to Kamp, right? Who's not letting him go. I should have known this before everybody in the pot who's listening is like, come on, this is what happened. I think Cosmo did a good video about it. But anyway, I don't really buy that. Like you said, they might have bad blood, but it's just like, no, you stomped on his wheel, like in that moment, like not because he cut you off, in February.
I could be talked into like a one race suspension.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's not even, so it's like, as Ackcross is not a classification series, so
Right.
you know, like, is it, another yeah, I think, yeah, one race, something. I feel like there's
But they don't suspend cyclocross racers. It just doesn't happen.
they don't.
No.
I mean, 2 years.
That's drug
Okay, all right. You're saying
for like racing incidents.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think, yeah. I'm more concerned like with Bart Wellens trying to drop kick a spectator.
Okay, did that happen? I missed that. That was
Yeah.
a recent, or
No, he's riding. He's like kicking. It's
oh,
yeah, that's good
that
stuff.
that clip. Yeah, I mean, so people have brought up Vanderpool spitting on fans, and it seems different. These things seem. I mean, like I said, there is, is there? I feel like that was Vanderpool got fined because there was a rule in the UCI rule book about this sort of actions that are.
And
demeaning.
there's the same for this. That's what I'm saying. He can get fined. I just
Yeah.
don't know where the suspensions come in. That's any precedence for that. But at the end of the day, Boedi,
That's not the biggest takeaway.
it's not the biggest takeaway. In fact, I think it will be just a footnote. The biggest takeaway for me in this race is that with like 2 laps to go, Lars van der Haar is still 15 seconds behind on this. Like Toon Aerts is out there just crushing it. And who else is with him? Like Van de Putte is out there as well. And it's like one of those guys is going to win this race. And Lars is just like in the group back there. And then he just methodically just works his way through the field, through these chasers, gets to the front of them, drops all of them, takes another lap to like get back with the leaders, gets to the leaders, is able to ride through the mud pit clean where both of those guys screw it up behind him, and he's off and he wins the race, and he puts in the fastest lap of the day on the last lap, which is something you don't really see all the time in cyclocross. It's always sprint at the beginning. Lars is like throwing down a 7:20 lap where everybody else in the front's doing 7:30, 7:40 with him. I hate to go to this well too many times, Boedi, but is Lars back?
I think so. I think this was what
It
he
was
wanted.
an impressive display. I mean, this was nuts to see him like just crush the end of this race.
I think so. I think you hit the nail on the head. The diesel engine. He's pulling a Kerry Warner, getting the diesel going. This actually made me look up to see who is older, Kerry or Lars, because I feel like we refer to Lars as an old guy. Like he's the old guy in the Lions. He's the coach in the race. He's the veteran. He's been around. They're the same age. So
like 32. What are they?
I think racing age 33. I think is
Okay.
what.
Oh.
If I completely got that wrong, Kerry Warner, I apologize. But I swear I looked it up. I could be wrong.
It's funny because I was gonna like compare it to like Sven in his later years, but he's still got like 7 years to go.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Lars has been around forever, but he started like really young.
Well, he was the first young gun. He was the first guy, at least that I remember, who kind of like skipped his senior year.
Yeah,
And went straight to college.
And this is when I started racing cross. So I was Lars came to my, I knew about him because he was the Vanderpool shot. So
I should
there
say
we
he
go.
skipped his senior year and went straight to pros. That's the better anecdote. Didn't do a lot of
No. So yeah, I think that like he just rode a good race, and like you said, he didn't get caught up in the Michigas in the beginning. He just was kind of like cruising.
He
doing
also,
his
what he
thing.
did? Skills. Like he nailed those off cameras.
Yeah.
You were talking about Fem.
really
He was
did.
the smoothest one on there. And then even the second and the third descents, he was creating gaps there. I think that third like long sort of sweeping left-hand descent, I think he might have gained a second on that alone. And that's what impressed me. I mean, just the skills are just so good right now. And I think he's the rider to watch. You look at last year's winner in this, Thibaut, and he knew this was going to happen. Thibaut said this last week. He's scared about a cyclocross season. That kind of came to fruition in this race. He was riding with David Haverdings there for a while. Haverdings ended up beating him. Thibaut ended up in 12th.
I mean, yeah, he said he got sick, I think he said, is what happened. So, right. I mean, he had a hell of a road season. So one would, we forgive you, Thibaut, for not, coming in super hot because you have to recover. I mean, dude has had the pace he's won more World Tour road races at this age than Wout or Van der Poel have. So got a skill, got a talent. But yeah, I wanted to point out that there was something Cyclocross 24 pointed out, tweeted about this week, was that there were so many more men's teams now. Like there's when we first started this podcast, it was just, or like when I joined you, it was the Lions and it was the Sauces, and they each had like 15 riders, and you just kind of didn't know what was going on. And it's like, we need more teams. Like, what kind of tactics is going on here? But CX24 was like, look, you have the Lions with Nijs, Ron Haar, Van der Haar. You've got the Sauces with Iserbyt, Matthew Venternout. The new Ridley team with Joris Nieuwenhuis and Felipe Orts and Sota. Nieuwenhuis has shingles, so isn't there. You had the Schnacht Containers with Arts. You had Creelan with Sweek. Joran, Toon, a bunch more. You have Van de Putte on Alpecin and Reds with Mason. So it's like, okay, this is good. We've diversified with this men's squad. And I was like, this is great. I love it. This is a good thing. Thank you, CX20, for pointing it out. Then you go and look at the results, and it's the Lions and the Sauces on 1 and 2. With Van de Putte, who has been riding solid all last year and rode, he's like, yeah, I'm the third best.
Yeah, but to go along with what you're saying, yes, that's true for the top 2. But look at the top 5.
Right,
top 5 different teams.
Right, and then the funny thing is and then you have Creelan, Corendon, who are 5, 6, 7, and it's like that whole thing where if you've got 3 guys at the finish of the sprint and none of you got on the podium, it's like, well, maybe 2 of you should have worked for one guy. And I will say this, that Creelan did try this sort of old 1-2 at the beginning of the race, which was good to see. They sent Toon out. He was out there for a while. Then Aerts had to pull him back. Van had to pull him back. And then they send out Joran.
Joran actually had a really nice counterattack in this race.
Yeah. And so sure. So that is good. I'm glad this is happening. It was good to see. It's sort of and then we had Tone, Aerts, who also then put an attack on that big climb. And he just kind of 2 laps too early, just faded at the end. If he would have timed it better, Lars, wouldn't have been able to do his move. And we'd be talking about, we'd be asking, is Tone back?
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, I think Tone looked great. Yeah, no, that was good. I want to save some for next week. I think we're running long in this episode. We'll just leave it with this. Boedi, Femba and Empel's teammate, looked like he was getting excited to get back to racing cyclocross. Having his first rides back on the bike after his Vuelta crash.
Yeah, we'll hear, won't we? I don't know.
Woutmas. Is it too early? Too early to get the Woutmas decorations up?
It's too early. It's freaking October. Okay, let's save some excitement for later.
All right. Well, we'll save some excitement for next week when we'll be talking to you about Cincinnati and King's Cross.